Hey, listen up, I've tried to tell you this 100 times. Not getting better by lying there pretending to cry. You on repeat, you can see, cause you have closed your eyes. You say you listen, but you're missing what it's all about. Rise up now. If you never fall, you don't change at all. Cry out now. Have you given up? I will never stop, yeah. I've tried to help you, but you keep reading between the lines. There's nothing there for you to complicate, we're not aligned. You say you listen, but guessing that's just another sign of growing up. You're growing old, your life keep passing. Rise up now. If you never fall, you don't change at all. Cry out now. Have you given up? I will never stop, yeah. Now if you break it, I can take it, I don't need a prize. Leave out the fact that I am up against 1,000 guys. My intuition efficient, cause I can't use my mind. Don't try to tell me how it's done, you haven't done your time. Rise up now. If you never fall, you don't change at all. Cry out now. Have you given up? I will never stop, yeah. Rise up now. If you never fall, you don't change at all. Cry out now. Have you given up? I will never stop, yeah. Rise up now. If you never fall, you don't change at all. Cry out now. Have you given up? I will never.
Hey robot makers, how are you doing? Hope you're having a good day so far, good weekend so far. So do you want to know what happened at the Raspberry Pi exhibit launch this weekend? It was an absolutely amazing event. I'll also give you some updates today on channel updates, and you can finally see the Pimoroni thermal breakout module camera in action as well. I've got some hot and cold things that we can test with that as well later on. So let's dive straight in. My name's Kevin. Come with me as we build robots, bring them to life with code, and have a whole load of fun along the way. Okay, so let's go over to the keynote. So excited to share some of the stuff with you today. Slightly more relaxed show today because I was away this weekend at the event, so I've not had a lot of time to pull a show together, but I've got quite a bit to show you anyway, so I'm sure it'll be quite fun. So I'm going to update you on the Raspberry Pi exhibit launch, show you a few clips from that, give you some other exciting news as well, and we'll also have a look at the thermal camera module on the Trilobot itself. So it's pretty cool stuff for you to share today. So yes, we hit 5,000 subscribers today. I cannot believe this. So time to celebrate. I've got my bottle of Diet Coke, my little really cute bottle opener. It's in the shape of a Coke bottle. We'll also use this as it's nice and cold. Cheers, everyone. So yes, if you look at the graph there, I've been putting the figures in every single day in a little sheet just so I can track that. And that weird bump in the middle there, that's where James Bruton showcased one of my projects in his video. I was lucky enough to be the first person that he showcased as well, so people watching that were like, oh, what's this? And it's about like Smars Fan and some of the projects on there. So that's what that little speed bump is there, but you can see the general curve is growth. It's not flatlining, it's not linear, it's accelerating, so really, really pleased with that. And thank you absolutely everybody who's part of this as well. I wouldn't be here without you guys, so thank you very much for that. So yes, the growth rate means that we should probably hit around 10,000 later this year, which is mind-blowing, seeing as, we've just got to 5,000, but that's the rate of increase. So really, really pleased with that. So yes, the Raspberry Pi 10th birthday event, there was a launch of a new exhibit at the National Museum of Computing down in Bletchley. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that as well. So Bletchley is kind of, I'm up north, kind of just behind the B, I think, on that map there, the sort of Manchester area, and Bletchley Park is down south, right near Milton Keynes, that kind of area, a bit north of London, a bit west of Cambridge. So this is a bit of a clip of some of the old buildings that are there at Bletchley Park. So as you're walking up to the National Museum of Computing, you can see this. So Jenny's there just walking up the hill to the museum, and that's more of Bletchley Park. You can see there they've got some grey paint on that as well. And on the left hand side is the kind of old buildings. I've worked in some buildings very similar to that at various different government sites around the UK when I've been contracting, so a bit of history for you there as well. This is the museum itself. They've got this nice green sign there, open Sunday 10:30 till 5. And it's run by volunteers, really kind volunteers who give up their time to sort of get these old pieces of iron, these old computers up and running every weekend. So really great that they do that. So one of the fun things I did a tweet a while ago of the clustered pie, which is in a box actually. I've not got that back out again. And that went absolutely viral. I think it had over 300,000 hits. And so I thought, I'd based this model on that exact Cray you can see there in the picture, the Cray one that they have there. This one was developed in the 1975, I think this sold them in 1976. So you can see on there's a little yellow thing nesting on the shelf, on the seat, and that's my clustered pie. So my clustered pie met its grandfather, and the irony being that the clustered pie, a single Raspberry Pi Zero, is like an order of 10 more powerful than this entire 33 million pound supercomputer was from the 1970s. And that's Moore's law for you. That's just how computing power increases. And there's 12 Raspberry Pi Zeros in that cluster, and they can run various different things on there in Docker. So pretty cool to have that there. But they changed the sign. I'd developed like a tiny little sign that says "Do not sit here," and then they got and changed it for this year. So anyway, that's fun. It's fun, but it was fun to sort of follow up on that tweet that had been so successful. I think it just really hit a nerve with people of interest. So the actual launch event itself, you can see there, is it Eben Upton and Philip Colligan there as well. So Eben runs the sort of trading entity. They develop the boards, the software, and Philip is on the foundation side. So they do all the sort of charitable stuff. They do all the outreach and the impact work to get these computers into the hands of people around the world and make it more meaningful. And they had a really interesting story about why Raspberry Pi came about. So if you were a child of the 80s, like I am, I was born in the 70s, but a child of the 80s, we benefited from the computer literacy program. So computers like this one behind me here, the BBC computer, they were in every single school in the UK, in state schools particularly, and that meant that we had access to these kind of computers. We could learn how to program on them, write very simple programs, and understand how all that works. And BBC's had connectors on the back, so you could plug real-world things into them, little turtles and things like that. Turtles being like a little robot that you can move up, down, left, or right with a pen in it, and you can have the pen go up and down, and it's like a simple plotter, and it would draw out various different shapes based on the commands that you give. And there was also, like, the logic puzzle I remember was the you had a little boat and there was like a river, and the two sides of the river you had a hen, a fox and a chicken. You had to get them across the other side. You could only have two in the boat at any one time. So if you had the fox and the fox would eat the chicken. If you had the chicken and the chicken would eat the seed. So you had to figure out what combination of journeys did you need to make to get all that across to the river. So little programming problems like that really sort of inspired you. I mean, the fact I remember it to this day. So yes, Logo, Richard was saying there about Logo, that was another one of the, that was the language that was used to move that turtle around on the tabletop. So that whole program, after a while, after the personal computer boom kind of ended and petered out into what we have now, then the computer literacy program came to an end, and that meant that that people were not getting qualified. The engineers and people taking up computer science was decreasing, and even was working at Cambridge in the sort of intake, head of engineering or whatever it was, intake to see how many students are applying each year, and the numbers were sort of going lower and lower, and the quality of the curriculum at the time was very poor. So this is around 2005, I believe. And he was saying that really, if people had an A-level in IT or computing, it actually meant that they probably wouldn't get taken into Cambridge because it was such a poor curriculum that, it was actually like a negative A-level. So that was where they started from, and they thought, what can we do to bring back that computer literacy program from the 1980s? We need another BBC. So Eben was working with, I think, was it Pete Lomas, to develop this what will become the Raspberry Pi, and they were thinking about what to name this. There was lots of other fruit companies around at the time. They were talking about, was it Tangerine, and you've got things like Blackberry and all these other companies. I think there's a fruit company in the US as well that they thought of, and they thought, we want to build something in the UK and give a bit of a to the US, because they could have built this for us, but we wanted our own. So they called it Raspberry. And Pi is for Python. As you probably know, they wanted the Pi to be like a little symbol. They thought it looked really cool on the marketing, but eventually that didn't come out as being the logo, and we'll get onto that little story as well in a bit. So that's kind of how they came about. They wanted to develop something that would be accessible for everyone to get hold of, so therefore cheap, so they were building it to a price point, and also they wanted something to go hand in hand with that from a curriculum point of view as well. So they started focusing on making materials, so people could teach this in schools. And then what they then realized was this really wasn't about educating children. This was actually about educating teachers to teach children, and reskilling people from different, sunset sectors, to be reskilled and be able to take up computer science and teach the next generation of people. So it's not all just about Word and Excel and how to do PowerPoint presentations and Excel formulas. It's actually about something more meaningful. And one of the really surprising things is the original Raspberry Pi that Eben envisaged didn't have the headers on there. Them 26 pins that were on the original Raspberry Pi, these weren't actually on the original one. He imagined this would just have a HDMI port, you'd plug it into a TV, and then you'd be able to program from it. It would have a USB port for a keyboard or a mouse, that kind of thing. So it actually wasn't on there, and I think Pete insists that this would include the headers. So that's kind of how that came about, and that's one of the things that made it really successful, because we call it practical computing nowadays. It's something that means that you can make a difference in the outside world. It isn't just software, and Eben's very much a software and chip guy rather than a hardware header type person, trying to get things connected like the Arduino. And they had seen the success of the Arduino as well. So that was kind of a very quick version of the talk. If you want to watch that, it's on the Raspberry Pi's YouTube channel. The whole thing was live streamed. You can probably see me in my red hat and my red Raspberry Pi t-shirt sat in the second row on the left hand side, along with everybody else that was there as well. I think, Martin, were you there at the event? There's quite a few people there, and I didn't even recognise you to say hi, because sometimes I just don't recognise people. Anyway, if you want to help support the show, I've got a button on here that I'm supposed to press that makes a nicer sort of display than that. Is it that one? There we go. Yeah, if you want to help support the show, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Kevin McAleer, and that helps pay for the website hosting, the royalty-free music that I have to use, the graphics software, the Canva that I use to do all the thumbnails, the streaming software, Ecamm Live, which is like a monthly subscription, and all the equipment that's sort of growing and making the show as quality as it is. So if you want to help out with that, you can go over to buymeacoffee.com/Kevin McAleer and buy me a coffee. Or if you want to join the YouTube membership program, I know it's not for everyone, you can join that. You can even dip out if there's a couple of months where you think, oh, it's not for me, this one, this hasn't been as many robots as I would like. You can leave, but you can also join and help. So whatever, I'm appreciative of every single help that people can give. One of the easy things that you can do for free is just click the like button, click the subscribe button and the little bell to get notified when I do a new video, and leave me a little comment as well on the channel. That also helps. It tells the algorithm that this is worth commenting on. So here we go. This is Eben and Philip trying to cut the ribbon. Engineers.
Here we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1. There you go. Ta-da! Welcome to Raspberry Pi.
So a little room right near the entrance to the museum, and that's where they had the exhibit. So one of the really cool things they had and you can see there the header pins completely missing. This is the Alpha Raspberry Pi made in 2011. That was part of the design process to get the original Raspberry Pi up and running. It has a reset button on there as well, which is weird because the current Raspberry Pi doesn't have a reset button, doesn't have an on-off button either. But Eben did say future Raspberry Pis, maybe the 6, maybe the 5, will have that on there. And he did talk about, what people wanted to have on the next generation of Raspberry Pi, and one of the reasons that they don't include things on that Raspberry Pi. So some people said, why is there not like an analog to digital converter on there like you have on an Arduino, or why is there not this, why is there not that? And they said, well, they will look and say, this is a general purpose computer. Is everybody going to use that component? Because if they do, we'll put it on there. But if only a fraction of the people are going to use it, even like half them, we won't put it on there. We want to keep that price point really, really low. So as Adam says, doesn't the 4 have a reset header? I think it probably does. I've not checked that one out myself, but I've got here one of the very original Raspberry Pi that were launched from the launch date. Was it the Farnell and Pimoroni websites had stock of these, and I was one of the people that actually got one of these from day one. And the reason you can tell this is an original is because that audio port there is blue on a lot of the later ones. The ones that were made in the Sony factory have got a blue one, and Eben was looking at this very keenly and telling me about all the different chips on there, where he'd which manufacturer he got them from, and the battles that they'd had to get that particular group of resistors or whatever. And he said yes, that's blue on the later ones that were manufactured down in is it Swansea? It's down south of Wales where they're manufactured now, but the first bunch were actually manufactured in China. So you can see all the different things that are on there. And this very old version as well has the composite video. The new ones don't have that. They have a little header. I think they have a little circuit surface mounted thing you can put 2 pins in to get that composite out. But that's what the original ones look like. They did have HDMI as well, full size, and they did have the audio out. But that's one of the clues. And I asked Eben, I did my research. I got lots of different Sharpie pens, and I found one that would mark on PCB quite nicely. So I brought that along with me, and he signed this Raspberry Pi Raspberry Pi 1. We'll go to full screen there, and you can see that's his signature just on there. He didn't really want to ruin the board in any way, so he was like really nervous, like, where can I write on this? I'm like, just write anywhere. It's fine. I'm probably not going to use this one. It's not quite as quick as the rest of them, but it was a nice little piece of history there. So what else was there? Yes, so the actual exhibit itself, they had a room full of stuff. There was like they had 3 working Raspberry Pi 4s and one sort of stuck to the wall. Some of them had like show only written on them, and I suspect they were like faulty ones, but they just looked like the part. And then the other thing they had was this exhibit. So you can see on the right hand side there, they got some Pimoroni Picades. One of them is really rare. The transparent Picade is transparent. That's a really rare one, whereas the one on the right hand side is similar to the one that's behind me, that's just running where is it there? It's running a Spectrum game at the moment. So what else is there on there? Yes, we've got Eva's Voiceotronic robot that won the Coolest Project Award as well. There was a campaign recently by Raspberry Pi to try and get that video that they created about that into an award, and I think she's doing really well on that. But it was really inspiring to see that in person, seeing what it's made of. And you can see a few other bits and bobs they've got down there, a couple of Magpie magazines. And one of the really cool things that they had is this magazine that I have just here. This is the exact same magazine that they had. And on the front cover of that, there's a little robot. And that little robot there, that's my robot. That's my Pico robot, which I brought with me just here. It's that one. You can see his little orange tags just underneath there. And that's actually on the picture as well. And that picture was just taken just outside on the steps there. Actually before this robot lab was actually built. So that magazine with my robot in the thing is in the museum, which I thought was pretty cool. Unexpected, but pretty cool. So I can claim I've got one of my robots in the museum, kind of. While we were there as well, that magazine decided to slide down, so we had to go and ask somebody to get that. But they've got a few other things in that exhibit as well. They've got the Sense hat there. They've got a wildlife camera module. They have the Astro Pi. I think that's the one that actually went into space as well, that one that's there. There's another 2 up there at the moment at the International Space Station. And they've got a whole bunch of other things like the Book of Scratch and the Hello World book as well. So that was pretty cool. And I got to meet Eben. That was really, really cool. I was hoping that that would be the case. I thought, maybe the event's small enough that, they'll not be, it won't get swamped with thousands of people and stuff. And yeah, he was really cool. He came over and was kind enough to take a picture. And we talked about the availability of the RP 2040 chips. They've got lots of them in stock at the moment. So although you can't get over to the Raspberry Pi 4s very easily at the moment, there is stock coming through. The 02s are coming through as well. It's just whenever any of them are released, they get sort of eaten up. So they're making sure that they don't just splurge the market all at once with them. They are spreading them everywhere around all the different suppliers. And they are still making them. It's just there is lots of supply chain constraints at the moment. And I asked him, is there a specific bottleneck? And he was like, nope, everything. But RP 2040, they have plenty of them. Lots of manufacturers have plenty of them. They've been ordering them in the hundreds of thousands. So we're going to see loads of innovation in the RP 2040 space. We've already seen quite a lot of innovation in that. In fact, I'm just looking across my desk to see one of the things that was really cool. Where have I put that? I think it's just over here. There it is. So you may or may not have seen the screen's not on, the Badger RP 2040, a Badger 2040, sorry, which is a Pimoroni badge. It's powered by an RP 2040. I've not got any power plugged into this at the moment. I need to just give it some juice. I think I've got a cable actually. I can probably plug this in just to... we did a demo on this on the channel actually, so you can probably find that. But yeah, it runs... oh, that's got some juice. I can unplug that. Yeah, he does look like Jason Statham. So there you go. It's running its software, and get it to focus in on that. It's like a little Kindle or something like that. It's got an e-screen. You can use the buttons to change the menus and make it into a badge. So I had a QR code with my YouTube channel on, just in case there was any pictures that people took. So that picture there, you can see it's got my name on it and the QR code. So we talked about that. There's going to be loads of innovation in that kind of space. And I also showed him my original Raspberry Pi 1 that I purchased in 2011. And the other interesting story he was saying about that was that a lot of people who ordered it didn't get one. Instead, they got a T-shirt saying... I can't remember what the actual T-shirt says, but it's essentially like an apology T-shirt saying, it is coming, please wait. Be pretty cool to have that T-shirt, because that's also kind of a piece of history. So yeah, he was inspecting the board, he was looking at that black audio connector, saying that's a pre-Sony factory build, and he could see all the other components as well, like he points out there. So yeah, getting photobombed there as well by one of our people. But yeah, pretty good experience actually. Another story that he told was about the Raspberry Pi logo. So did you know who created the Raspberry Pi logo? It was Paul Beach, who's the co-founder of Pimoroni. One of my friends now, I know him quite well. And yeah, Eben was telling me a story that the original Raspberry Pi logo is actually slightly asymmetrical. And was it Alex who was doing a cross-stitch pattern based on this? And they had it all laid out and they were sort of making all the little X's and everything, and they realised that it didn't kind of make sense. One side was slightly bigger than another, and it's true. The left, if I can show you on the screen there, it's that little thing there isn't exactly the same size as that one. That one's slightly higher, and that one's slightly lower, ever so slightly. But it's one of the things that they spotted only last year apparently, or was it this year? So quite recently. But yeah, Eben was full of fun stories like that he was telling us about. One of them, he was at Heathrow Airport. They were talking about the bill of materials for the original Raspberry Pi. So all the different components that make this up, the cost of all those things, the name of them, the suppliers, that in a big spreadsheet is a bill of materials. Or, as it's sometimes referred, a bomb. So he's in an airport saying, yeah, I need the bomb now. I'm getting on the plane and I'm going to be working on the bomb. Got quite a few hours to go. Give me the bomb. And he said this was this circle of silence of people that was sort of going wider and wider. And he was hoping that when he realised what he'd said, that didn't reach the guy with the machine gun. So that was quite a fun thing as a story. Okay, so that was the story about the logo. So other news. So I might have hinted about this, but I thought I'd tell you about it directly. So really cool thing. I work for Pimoroni now. So I've tried to make sure I pronounce that correctly. I always say Pimoroni because it's a pie, a Raspberry Pi. It's pirates, but no, it's Pim, like Pims. It's Pimoroni. So I make sure I get that right. So yeah, it's my dream job. I create videos for them. So just like I'm doing now, where I showcase something, go through the slides, basically that kind of thing, but with their products. So that means I get hands on with a lot of their products before they're launched, which is really, really cool. It means I get hold of, you know, the experts, and I get free stuff as well to show. But I will always make sure if I'm showing something that they give me, particularly if it's on my channel, I'll put that paid promoter thing on, just so that you're aware. But I give them a fair review. If it's rubbish, I would say so, just not on their actual channel when I'm doing the video intros for them. And you can see that one there about the Badger 2040, that got like 3k views, and it's only like 9 days since that was launched. So pretty cool. You definitely want one of those if you want to get hold of one too. So yeah, absolutely love it. Love working with the guys. It feels like I'm part of something much larger. Absolutely love it. So there'll be more of that to come. So yes, I do go live every single Sunday at 7 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, which I have another button for that actually, which looks a bit nicer. It kind of shows the all the different time zones around the world, because sometimes it's a bit confusing. You think, when do I need to sort of switch on for this? Particularly if you're watching on replay and you want to catch the next live. So there's a few of the time zones there. Kind of like the Americas on the left hand side. We have the sort of central what's that, Eastern European time zones. We've got Pakistan, we have Russia, and we have a few others there. India Standard Time, and then on the very other column we have CST, China Standard Time, and some of the other ones there. I think, is it Australia time as well? Those ones. But yeah, you know where you live, you know what that means to you. I'm in Greenwich Mean Time, which makes it really easy until we go to summertime. Then it's British summertime, and that just means it's like 1 hour ahead. Spring forward, fall back. Cool. So what else have we got for you here? So yeah, if you want to join me on Discord as well, we've got a little Discord server going on. Just go to action.smarsfan.com/join-discord, and there's a little sign up form there, and you can join our Discord group, and we're pretty active in there as well, which is pretty cool. Okay, so we have some fun with the thermal camera module. So I brought some fire, and I brought something that's cold as well, so we can test this out. So let me tell you about this as well. So this is an MLX 9640 thermal camera. They do two models of this. They do a wide one, and they do sort of a I think it's 50-degree one. So I've got the wide angle one here. So yes, either 55 degrees or 110 degrees. And it's got an I2C interface, I2C interface with a convenient breakout guard and connector. I've got it plugged in on the desk over here. So if I just move this one, I'll move that robot out of the way for a minute. Move it out of the way and put this one up front and center. I've actually got it just here, just plugged into that breakout guard and port just there. So it's 32 by 64 pixels, which doesn't sound a lot, but it's interpolated, so it looks a lot larger, and when you see it, it's good enough. It shows you hot and cold things, which is what you want. So we can bring this into a lot of our projects. It's up to 64 frames a second, so it's pretty quick. You can adjust the I2C interface refresh speed in that as well to get that 64 frames a second, but it's pretty quick. And it's got a range between -40 degrees and 300 degrees C, with approximately 1 degree of accuracy, which is pretty cool, isn't it? And it's 3.3 volts or 5 volts compatible, depending on what kind of chip you're using. So Raspberry Pis and Raspberry Pi Picos and Arduinos and microbits, all friendly with that. It's compatible with all models of Raspberry Pi and certain models of the Arduino as well. So yeah, anything that can do I2C is pretty cool. So the module itself, this is what it looks like as a nicer picture I took before. What else we need to say about that? I think it's just a repetition of the other stuff we've talked about. What else is there? Yeah, so documentation comes with C++ libraries. If you want it to run really quickly, then C++ is the way to go. Use the code that's made for your machine. There are Python libraries as well. I've not played with them too much, but I guess they might be a little bit slow on the refresh rate. Still usable, not a problem, but the C++ is definitely like real-time detection of stuff. As always with Pimroni, not biased at all. The quality of the documentation is amazing, and they always have working examples, they always have a Git repository, and they also maintain the code as well, which is pretty cool. So there we go, we've got a new subscriber, thank you for that. I don't know why it was so small down there, that was a bit weird. And another one, awesome. So let's go over to a bit of a demo, shall we? Let me get this up and running. So at the moment, this is on my desk, and I've actually not got the battery plugged into it, so I'm going to plug it in, and we can then start this thing working. So it's got the little official battery pack on there now. and I've got the module plugged in just at the front here. You can see that, there we go. And once this boots up, I can see the red light is on the Raspberry Pi. You can just see it glowing there and flashing away. I'm just going to put it on the desk over there on the overhead, and while that's just booting up, I'm going to load up VNC viewer, and I'm just going to connect to it. So let me just get this up and running. In fact, if I go on this for a second, can you see that? So I'm just going to type in stuff. I've got this little SSH thing that shows me some text just before I log on. So there's the little trial bot that I did, and then online and ready to rock. So the first thing I'm going to type on here, some reason the VNC server doesn't work properly on the first time. It's got some weird error message there. I just need to probably just uninstall it and install it again. And then if I go to the VNC viewer and just hit that, it's going to connect me up there as well. So let's see if we get the right password first time. Yes, we do. I don't know why it's asking me for that again. That might just be something to do with that VNC viewer. Okie doke. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to open up a little terminal thing. So I've already got the library installed. I went to git clone Pimoroni, and then let me show you the name of the library. So it's mlx9640-library. So if you do a git clone Pimoroni / that, you'll be able to get the code. So if we go into that library, have a look what's in there. There is an examples folder, so I'm going to go into the examples folder and let's have a look there. I'm also going to do I2C detect, and that's going to tell me if I've got this detected. I think it's -y and 1. Yep, so see there we've got 3.3. That tells me that it's detected the module that's in there. If I pull this out and run it again, it won't detect it. If I plug it in and then run it, there we go, it's there. Need to make sure it's there, otherwise we'll get some weird error messages happening. I'm just going to remove that for a second. Now we've got a couple of test programs. Let's run the test one first. So if I do test, so this is the output. Now this looks pretty horrible to me. This doesn't look very good at all. So if I just put that flame thing in front of it and then turn that off, can we actually see that? Can't really make out very much, but this is actually running the terminal. So I'm not expecting, if I put my hand there, you can see my hand. That looks like a hand shape. You can see my thumb at the top, and the refresh rate is terrible, but it's actually outputting it to the terminal. So, you know, what do we expect? So let's cancel that, and let's have a look at some of the other examples. Let's go for, the best one I found is the SDL scale. So let's run SDL scale. This looks much more as you would expect. So there's my hand. If I now grab that lighter and put it in front, you can see that it's glowing white. That's the white hot of the flame. If I put the flame quite close, you can see there the flame is sort of flaming away. And I've got my nice cold drink. I can put my cold drink there, and you can see that that's looking blue. If I put my flame next to that, you can see that's white hot. My hand's just behind it there. So if I grab hold of that and then I move my hand, can we see my hand's a bit colder? Yep, we can see where it is a little bit cold and it's getting warmer again. If I grab this, let's just move this around because it is completely portable, this robot. So it's now pointing at my cameras. If I point at my laptop's pretty hot. So you can see I'm doing this and you can't see me doing this. That's my laptop down there. What else have we got? We've got some lights. There's like a ring light. Let's see if that's hot. Yeah, you can make out the ring light. There's another white LED panel. That's actually not that hot, but my laptop looks pretty hot. And that's because it's doing a lot of work. In fact, you can see the area that's really hot inside. That's pretty cool. And then back to that cold drink that I've got there. That's my bottle of Diet Coke. So for me, this, you can see me there. There's me waving at you with my face. You can see my arms there. I've not got this configured for the fastest frame rate, but you can certainly make it out, and it does work. And it's not using, it's using infrared, I guess, but you can definitely see the difference between various different things, and it isn't just like light. That is definitely heat that it's sensing there. So it could perhaps make something where it detects if something's white like that. it'll sound an alarm. We can feed this into a NumPy array in Python, and we can do various different things with that. So we could look at the values that are in there, and if there's a particular area, we could do object detection using OpenCV, all that kind of stuff. So somebody asked a question, can we use this with another camera at the same time? Yep. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. This isn't particularly taxing on the CPU. In fact, if we go over to our little terminal while that's running, just do htop, we can see there only one of the cores was using anything like, and I can still see on the imager that's running. So it's not particularly taxing. We could run all kinds of stuff on that at the same time. We could run other Python scripts in unison. So pretty cool. I'm just going to press Control-C and stop that now. There we go. There are a few other programs on there as well. I'm not sure what they do. Let's have a look at video, see what that does. Don't know what that means. Let's run the step one. So that's just showing like an array of values. Might be particularly useful. I don't know. Hotspot, let's try that. What's hotspot? No, I couldn't find a frame buffer for that. And what about fbuff? Some of them came up with this segmentation fault. I didn't really have time to look into why that is. Let's try interp. Nope, that's not happy. And what about raw? It probably means there's a library missing. Yeah, it's not very happy with that. So there we go. So that was just a quick look at the sensor itself. I've got a whole bunch of other sensors that I'm going to be looking at. So for example, go back to the full screen now. I do have this ICM 20948, and this is an accelerometer gyroscope, very, very small. And this one, again, it's just a breakout. We can just plug that into the header, the breakout port, and then install the library, and then we've got like an extra sensor on there. Now, I think when Chris designed this, he was saying that he's designed these at kind of an angle so that we could have laser sensors on each corner, so that this could detect where it is, as well as the rangefinder. It can also detect using the is it LX53 XO1, something like that, LV53 XO1, something like that, some combination of those letters. It's what I use in the SMARS Mini for the laser range finding, but they have a module, and one of the issues that they came up against that is they all use the same port, I think, so like the same address. So you would have to do something a bit janky to make each one have a different address, and then they would work fine. But I know he's working on that at the moment, so that's pretty cool. Cool. So I think that's pretty much it for the demo section. So if you're watching YouTube on replay, this is the section of the video where I'll sort of wave goodbye, and I'll see you next time. And if you're watching live, this is the part of the video where we get to have a bit of a chat, and I'll see what you've all been talking about all this time. So let me scroll the chat all the way back to the top, and let's see what people are talking about. So somebody mentioned Boomer then. Let's have a look. So Adam's been working on his new book. Very excited to read that as well. Let's have a look what else people have been talking about. So Adam says, does Bletchley have the Goliath, or is that a different museum? So they've got Colossus, and they've got a bomb that a BOME. That's the picture I was going to put on there, actually, I think. The bomb, which is like a reconstruction of the computer that Alan Turing worked on to decrypt the Enigma machine, and later on the Lorenz machine as well, I think. And that was a general purpose computer, but it couldn't store programs. You essentially hardwired the program by configuring what was wired into it. And one of the things that he did while he was at Bletchley Park was think about this universal Turing machine, as he called it, which was a computer that could have memory that you could store a program in, and it could recall that program and work on it and so on. And before that point, everything was like plug boards. It was kind of hardwired to run a program. So that was the unique thing that he brought to it, and essentially that's where modern computing came from that point forward. So it was the work that he did in this room in Hut 8, was it? He did some thinking and solved the problem of the Enigma, and also came up with general computing too. So I don't think it's the Goliath. I might be wrong on that. So what kind of computer do you think the Goliath was? I know the Colossus, they've got an Ernie replica as well. But yeah, the Colossus is their main one that they have there. The Cray computer that they have there doesn't actually work. It doesn't have any of the cooling units. It doesn't have a lot of the memory is missing, I think, as well. So it'll never run that one, unfortunately. And you need a small power station to run it too. So yeah, Richard was talking about Logo. That's the name of that software that was written, the language that you can draw little things on screens or move turtles around. They called it a turtle because it had like a dome. I saw recently on Twitter somebody was asking what this was, and it's like a two-wheeled robot with a dome on the top, and because it looked like a turtle's back, they called it a turtle. So there's a photo of the Epson turtle in the Facebook group. Awesome. Yeah, Granny's Garden, Wagon West, Folio. That's the name of the word processor that was on the BBC. So I've come across the BBC manuals. Wow, pass that on. Absolutely, that would be nice to have the set. And what I'll do as well, I'll get some kind of connector up and running so that we can plug in that BBC and get it up and running. I think it has composite out, so we can probably wire something together so that we can get a screen capture of that going. That'd be pretty good to do. So Rich said, I wanted to do programming, wasn't. We were able to do that. Hey Rob, how you doing? So Adam says computers were a fad and they wouldn't catch on. That's right. Even we're saying about that, about the who was it who said that they would only sell 5 computers worldwide? Was it somebody from IBM? And he said, nobody believed us when we said we would make a computer for $5. And the Raspberry Pi Zero, that he said it was a bit of a stunt having that on the front of a magazine just to show that you could do that. So that was pretty awesome. I remember when people trying to get hold of the Zero and no one could get hold of it, and it's actually his favourite Raspberry Pi. The 4 is the most engineered, the best model they've ever made, but the Zero or the Zero 2 is the ultimate small computer. So they really like that. So it wasn't taken seriously or encouraged. Yeah, when I was at school, so they had if you had to be in the top set for maths if you wanted to do computer science, because they thought you had to have that mathematical mind to be able to do programming. I wasn't in the top set of maths at all, and I can certainly do programming. I actually got suspended for about 2 weeks at school because I wrote a batch program. Remember batch files, .bat files? I wrote a .bat file that would just write a message, and somebody sat next to me saw that and then wrote something nasty. It actually wasn't me. And installed that on every computer in the lab, and this guy who ran the computer science thing was not happy about this, so I ended up getting suspended for 2 weeks. Just happened to coincide with the 2 weeks we were off anyway, but I felt terrible about that. Hey Martin, how's it going? So yeah, Richard says basically a child of the 80s. And Dale said I graduated in high school in 1976. Wow, so I was born in 75, so you graduated when I was 1 year old. That's amazing. So Adam says I'm Gen X before computers. So does that make you a boomer? We always have conversation about boomers, Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, and millennials and so on. People always like to class you as a particular type, but yeah, so I think I'm Generation X in that case because I was born in 70s, raised in the 80s kind of thing. So it says I owned one of the first Altair 8080A compute bike. Wow, that's amazing. So that's one of the switches on and off, or the on-off switches on the front. You have to sort of flip them all. That's what Bill Gates had, wasn't it? He was fed up of doing that, wanted to write something that would run on it instead. I understand as well. 63, wow. They were born in 58. Hey Ovi, how's it going? How are you doing there? So it says boomer. So I seem to be Generation X. Boom. Boomers because of the baby boom after the war. That's my understanding. So number 5. What's number 5? Not sure what number 5 is there, James. So doesn't the 4 have a reset header? Oh, right, you were asking about that. So I've got a 4, not here. I've got an unopened one that I bought from Pi Hut. I've got a couple of Raspberry Pi 2s as well I managed to get hold of. I think there might be one of them behind me somewhere. But yeah, got a couple of them to put some projects to. And I was just looking on Twitter before the show started, and Liz from Blitz City DIY was saying that she's just got Bullseye up and running on her Raspberry Pi, and I was thinking, oh great, does that mean that she's going to do some fun projects with a Raspberry Pi? She's very creative. She was on our Meet the Maker show a while back. Cost, not popular enough. So, yeah, it was quite expensive. And Eben was saying about that. In the UK, there was kind of two classes of people. There was people who had the BBC computer, and that was like a solid £100 more than the Spectrum. So there was like Spectrum people, and they went on to have like Atari STs, whereas the BBC people went on to have like Amigas, because they were like a solid £100 more than the ST. And there was always that battle of who had the best computer and so on. I just wanted any computer I get hold of, to be honest. Always love computers. So you think you had that one too? Awesome. So question, was it an event anyone could go to, or a select few? Is an event anyone could go to? So it was quite funny. We were sat in our living room, me and Jenny, me and beautiful wife Jenny, and we were talking about that tweet that had gone mental about, it'd gone viral, I should say, not mental. The tweet had gone viral, and it was the picture of the Raspberry Pi clustered pie, looking like a crate, and it had over 300,000 impressions. I think it's got 301,000 impressions now, which is just insane, the number of people that have seen this and then interacted with it and retweeted it. So we were sat there and we were talking about like what else is happening in the world of Raspberry Pi, and Jenny was googling this, and she saw this event that hadn't been advertised but was on the events board of the National Museum of Computers. And we've been to Bletchley Park about 6 years ago, and this is just within the grounds of Bletchley Park. And we'd done Bletchley Park, we'd spent basically all day there, and then we'd noticed that the National Museum of Computing was next door, so we managed to go in there and have a walk around. We realised that we could have spent an entire day there as well. There's just so much stuff. I know Carrie Lawler would absolutely love all the retro computers that are there. They have a room full of every single computer, console, handheld that you can imagine. There's just a room full of it. So we had loads of fun playing on some of them. They had like Lemmings on an Atari ST. They had Manic Miner running on a Spectrum. It looked like it needed some new caps on that. It was quite a fuzzy sort of screen, but yeah, it's pretty cool. So anyone could go to that. You just need to buy tickets, and they weren't very expensive. They were like £10 or something. And Raspberry Pi, because it was their event, if you like, it was their computer that was going into the exhibit. They kind of paid for some of the catering, so there's some like nice sandwiches and stuff. And everyone was there. Pete Lomas was there. They had Eben Upton there, Philip Culligan. They had a whole team. All the Magpie people were there, as well as the Raspberry Pi comms people. So I didn't know any of them to speak to other than, the main people. But yeah, we said hi to everyone as well there. So Richard says, frame. I'm thinking like glass cabinet, something like that behind me. So I'm talking about Google AI. So I have a Google AI Y box. If I can just grab it down here. I do have one of those, which is made by you with Google, and inside is a little header. It's a voice hat. You can see that in there. And you plug a Raspberry Pi into that, and it will do, and there's a really nice button there as well, with some header things. And it'll do speech recognition. You press the button, press to talk, and it will do speech recognition and speech. And it's got a big speaker on the front there as well. It's kind of like a home assistant, like a Google Home, something like that. But you have to press the button to speak. You can't do it voice activated. Don't know why they insisted on that as being a handicap. But yes, I've got one of those. That's pretty cool. So Richard said Eben always reminds him of Jason Statham. He does look like that. He's quite a tall guy. I mean, I'm quite sure I'm like 5'5" or something. And he was like towering up there. You can see on the thumbnail for this video, he's quite tall. So Adam said, I tried entering one of those RP2040 competitions but gave up. Couldn't design a PCBI Lite. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, isn't it? Sometimes it's not necessarily about the innovation or the complexity. It can just be the novelty factor. Sometimes somebody comes up with something, you think, yeah, that's really novel. Why didn't I think of that? So I always try and think about what's the most novel thing to do or what's really cool. So I'm not sure what Ronzi means. Number 5. Still not following you there. So Adam says, Pim's o'clock. That's right. Brilliant dream job. It absolutely is. Yeah, I'm really, really pleased with how this went. So shall I let you into a little secret? So I bought one of these Trilobots, and I wanted P. Maroney to to get in touch with me, really. I wanted to do an interview with Paul or with John or any of the team, really, for the Meet the Maker. And I was thinking, how can I do this? And I thought, I'll write them a love letter in the form of a video review of the Trilobot. So I'll pull out all the stops and I'll do not an unbiased view. I mean, if you watch the video of the review of the Trilobot, I do say some things about it where, you know, like, why have they got a header there when they've got the rangefinder, and I couldn't find the battery. The battery that they have in the picture for this, I couldn't get hold of one of them anywhere, so I bought all kinds of other batteries, and I wanted the actual battery, and why didn't they sell that? I later found out that that's, like, they do have them. It was like a supply chain thing. It's wearing off a little bit underneath there, but Chris Parrott did actually sign the bottom of that Trilobot, so I've got my signed Trilobot there. So they got in touch with me after that video and said, like, we really liked the video, would you like to come and do some more of that kind of thing for us? They did used to do a lot of videos on YouTube, but for a number of, I think during the lockdown particularly, they did Bilge Tank before the lockdown, where they had 3 of them, and they would talk about a particular product, or they'd have extra people on. Really, really good. But then they hadn't done quite a few for a while, so I've joined them to kind of do like a little intro video. Absolutely love it. So, yeah, it's definitely a dream job. So, moving on up, remember us all the little people when you're famous? Absolutely! And you know me, I'm not like that. I'm an everyman as well. So, actually, did you know that you were actually more like GMT plus 13 minutes? Most people don't know where you're on, so most just have to set their clock to GMT. That's right. So I don't know what the delay is when you're watching, you don't have, if you're not YouTube Premium, you probably get about 3 minutes of videos or something. I don't know. I have to put the video flag thing on because I have to get some income for this channel somewhere, because it's very expensive to do all this kind of stuff for free, and I'm not the richest person in the world. So I do have to put that on there. But you can watch on Facebook. I think that's free. And I think that's probably not too far behind. That does have about a 60-second delay on it, I think, because they like to screen the language, because they do they run it through like a voice analyst thing and check for language and whatnot. Helps with the trains, they're the same through the UK. Absolutely. So what way they generally use time trends? Oh, they're talking about time clocks there. So more talk about atomic clocks. So they were saying, can 2 or more cameras be used at the same time? So yeah, my understanding is that they can. Yep, not a problem. You could run as many cameras as you like on there. I mean, the Raspberry Pi only has the header for the built-in, the CSI header for one camera, but you could plug a USB camera in, you can have the thermal camera on as well, you can have as many I2C devices as you like there. I think you might only be able to have one thermal camera because that's on address 33. I dare say you could probably, sometimes they let you change the address, yeah. On the back there's some little headers, and I think you might be able to change that. I'm not sure, I'd have to get in touch with them. Not sure. Just having a look at the actual module on the back there. I was just wondering if those little connectors that are on there were something that you could solder together and get a different address. That's sometimes what they do. Why is that not focusing? Focus. But it just says I2C 33, and that's the address. But I think it's hard coded to that. So yeah, you might just be able to have one of them. So that's decent video. It is. It's not bad. It's not bad. You can see. You can make out things. So well, we're still talking about NTP and time and stuff. There's always a delay as well. So on the settings, when I go into YouTube Studio, I can set what the latency is, and I always set it to ultra low. So I think it's about 10 seconds between you seeing me say something and then me being able to read the comments in response to that. I have it as fast as possible. You can have the slow ones, and that enables things like that closed caption thing to appear, and so on. So I have to roam it around the yard at night detecting critters. That's it, yeah, you'd be able to see things. Yeah, it'd be pretty cool to have one of those, like an eye just overseeing everything, to see what's going on. So link it to a cup of coffee so it never gets cold. That's right, yeah, you could do that. And a USB cup heater for hotness. And link it to a device that shoots Nerf darts. Absolutely. We were thinking this for like a deterrent for squirrels on the bird table. You could get it to detect a squirrel and squirt a little water pistol or something like that. If I had the time, I would do that, but that's quite a... Getting the thing to squirt accurately and refill, it would take me so much time to figure that out, I think. So Pimaroni probably designing an I2C MUX. they're working on so much cool stuff that I can't tell you about, but honestly, the stuff that they are working at is just amazing. So I got to visit them a couple of weeks back and went down to the factory. I do intend to do like a factory tour with John, where he sort of shows you some of the really big pick and place machines, which are amazing to see. They're so big, and the speed that they work at, and then there's like these long ovens that all the things go through. It's a really great process. So if I get to do that, I'll do a little video, so I think that'd be pretty cool. Adam says yes, Colossus. It was Colossus. Yep, so they have Colossus there. It's a really amazing computer to go and see it actually running. It's got this weird kind of S-shaped paper thing as well, where it's sort of reading through all the instructions really, really quickly. And they have an entire room. It's one of the computers that you can walk inside. In fact, Pete Lomas had tweeted recently this afternoon about he had a picture of him inside one of the computers. It might have been Colossus, or it might have been the ENIAC one that they have there as well. And he said, there's not many computers you can actually walk inside, but yeah, is it the ENIAC one that's all valve powered? They have one at the back called the Witch, and that's all like, is it Decatrons or something they're called? They've got like 10 little lights that have a gas that lights them up. It's like a valve, but it's like a display, and that works in base 10. Not many computers work in base 10, but that one does. So yeah, the big room-sized computer. So it's not called Colossus for no reason. It is absolutely huge. So 32-bit says, my first computer was an Acorn Atom, came before the BBC, must be powered up one day. Great show, by the way. Oh, thank you for that. Really appreciate that. So the Zero has the QE factor. QE, what's that? What's a QE factor? I've not heard of that. QE? I don't know how you pronounce that. Alex says she's Generation Z. So that makes you a boomer, I think. You're born after the war, so you're in the boomer category. So the new Pi coming. So Eben talked about this. He said he's always been asked, when's the next Raspberry Pi coming out? And it takes quite a lot of engineering effort to develop something better than what they have now. And they always have to look at, do they need to invent something themselves, or do they partner with another company? So Eben actually worked with Broadcom as a chip designer before he worked for Raspberry Pi. So that's one of the reasons why Broadcom have their chips in the Raspberry Pi, because they work so closely together and they kind of partnered up. So rather than like reinventing the wheel, he just licenses that from them. And he was saying that, the Raspberry Pi 4 with its, all the cores that are in there, it's pretty fast as it is. So to try and make something even better, that's going to require the people they partner with to make something better, and then they can license that. And also RAM, there's only so much RAM you can stack on these things, because I think they have the core and then they put the RAM on top. Without it being like a top hat on there, there's only so much RAM that you can put on there as well. So things like the Raspberry Pi 2, they managed to eke out a bit more, because the original Raspberry Pi 0 was the same core as the original Raspberry Pi 1, I think. And then the Raspberry Pi 2 is the same core as a Raspberry Pi 3, I think that's right. So they can probably upgrade to a Raspberry Pi 4 kind of chip on there. But there are limits to that, and they want to keep the Zero as the price point computer. That's the lowest price that they can build something for. So it's not about putting as many features as you can on there. It's about doing it to a certain cost point. So they want the Raspberry Pi to always be the $35 computer, and it's kind of, what can you build this year for $35? So right now, one of the big challenges we have is everything's expensive. Shipping is expensive. Getting things from China over to the UK is expensive. Getting things moved around anywhere is expensive. Brexit has made things more expensive. There is just lots of challenges like that mean that making the next generation of computer isn't just a technical challenge. It can be like a logistical challenge as well. So a lot about that. So William says, started programming in 1960s, born in 36. Wow, that is amazing, William. Absolutely amazing. So what kind of languages did you program in then? Was it like Fortran, COBOL, Algol? What else would you have used back then? Or was it just like pure machine code? That'd be pretty cool to know. So yeah, Adam says, Boomers is to 65, X is 1980s, Millennium up to 2000, Z is 2000 to 2019. And what's that? Query Teens. That's quite cool. It's 2019 to 2021. Awesome. So wow, yeah. So they used PAC 4000, used core memory. So there's a guy that showed me this. We went in this room full of really, really big computers at the National Museum of Computing. They had an IBM computer, like array of these things at the size of washing machines. Each one of them was like a disk drive, and they were like, was it like 48 megabytes or something? It was for the size of it, you think, really? That's nuts. But this is what the technology they had available at the time. And then there was another computer, and I think it was like a National Elliott computer. And this was his favourite one. So he showed me like all this, how it all worked and so on. And he said they're all like hand-wired ferrite core memory. So they essentially are like a magnet with wire wrapped around it in 2 directions. And you can flip the bit in there. And it's literally 1 bit, and you can... It's something you could hold in your hand. It's not small. So pretty amazing that computers were like that once upon a time. So Bullseye, I think I heard Jim Polly, that confirms. Did I say Bullseye? Is it Buster now? No, it's Bullseye now, isn't it? Yeah, they're always named after Toy Stories, aren't they? So we've had like Jessie, we've had Buster, and now Bullseye. So I think that confirms I'm Generation X. Yes. Do you remember that TV show? If you're in the UK, there was a TV show, and they had this guy who did this funny thing with his hands, and it was like 3, 2, 1, and they had this robot that was called Dusty Bin, and it's kind of like it was really just like a remote control robot that came on with like hands that moved. But I love that thing. So William says it had a drum with a head per track. Wow. Yeah, this is when you could literally see data at these kind of era. That's amazing. But they worked, and what we have now is just like smaller versions of that, isn't it? So yeah, as Alex says, if you want to help build a robotic period table, fill this form in. Check out that form if you want to help us build the periodic table of robotics. It's a project I'm working on. We've had quite a few entries so far, but not enough yet. So if you want to help out, check out that link that Alex has put on there. So yeah, you must have seen some rapid changes in computing. And this for me it's a bit like flight. If you think like in, was it like 1901? There was like the first flight. Somebody can probably Google that for me and check out the correct date. But Orville Wright flying the first aeroplane, and then we have like supersonic jets and things now, and space travel. You think where we've gone from in 100 years, it's nuts. And in computing, we're kind of still in that bolting things onto the wooden aircraft and seeing how good this is. We're only just touching, we're only just getting started, really. I'm really interested in quantum computing. There's some really amazing things you can do with that. And so instead of having like an on and off, you have on, off, up, down, left, right bits as well. And if you code in that, you can do things that would normally take a regular computer to crunch through. So things like encryption, you can decrypt things a lot quicker in quantum computers, but they are still the size of a room this big, 3x3 room. But there's one on the internet that you can access for free. You can have a play with it. So they have a simulator, but it runs actual code on a real quantum computer. So we'll probably see that in our lifetime really take off, and it'll be a step change in the power of AI. So Adam says, I've got an unassembled AIY, but I spotted the AIY connected to the Voiceatron. Ah, yes, that's right. I think that's what they had there, the little button and the Voiceatron thing. So William says he's got a couple of Raspberry Pis as well. Awesome. So retired in 1998, but the Raspberry Pis keep up with changes. Awesome. That's really cool. I like that you're keeping up. They do say that anything that's invented after you're 40 years old, you consider like just magic. I'm the same with things like Snapchat. I'm like, I don't understand Snapchat. Why would you want to create a message that then disappears? That's a waste of time. So I'm not on Snapchat. I think I might have an account, but I don't know how to use it. It doesn't make sense. So Rich says, when the stream starts, I get adverts first, and then you appear 3 minutes or so left. Ah, okay, cool. And that's why I have the countdown timer. One of the reasons I have the countdown timer, why don't I just go straight into the show, is to allow people to sort of gather. And it's trying to find that sweet spot between, you don't want 10 minutes of waiting around, and me just like trying to do something for 10 minutes to kind of entertain you. So that's why we have a bit of music and the countdown timer. There's lots of different thoughts on whether you should do that, whether it should be a minute or so on. But I like enough time that people can go, all right, yeah, get a brew, get a drink, get some snacks or whatever, and then come and sit and enjoy the show. So things to forward to excellent. Cool. So what else have we say there? So mount one of those thermal cameras below a regular camera. That would be awesome, because at the moment it isn't. It's kind of at an angle. You can see there it's kind of off to one side. I'm in reverse here. When I'm looking at myself on my confidence monitor, I'm kind of looking in reverse. So that's the thermal camera, and our main camera is just there. So I'm going to have to shut this down because the battery, it's running on a battery at the moment. You can probably just see the LEDs of the battery there flickering away. Cool. So as Adam says, I managed to get my M5 stack to make a Porter hub I2C mux. That's pretty cool. ENIAC and UNIVAC. I often had to debug them. I was asking about that. Like that computer that the guy had, the was it the National Elliott one? I hope that's the one it is that I'm talking about anyway. And he showed me, he had this hooked to a regular terminal, like a green screen terminal. I was like, what? How can you do that? This seems to be the wrong era to be able to use a terminal on it. And he was like, no, it's all serial, it's all ASCII text or near enough. So yeah, but that's where the bug comes from. They used to have like moths that would land on the valve, and the valve is so hot that when the cold moth goes on it, it would heat up and burn. It would crack the valve, and then that valve would shut off. And you wouldn't know that, so your calculations would be wrong. So you'd have to go and debug the computer by walking in there with a feather duster or something to get rid of all the bugs that were physically in there. So yeah, the pick and place machines are amazing. Seen them in use when I visited a factory in China. Absolutely amazing, aren't they? I know some people who have them like in their house to do their own stuff, and seen like the big reels of stuff that are on there, and it just pull them through. And like I've got the a couple of Raspberry Pi Picos here. Been running for a project we've been working on, and these are on the this one isn't particularly on the reel, but yeah, these reels that you get them on, that's the kind of thing that they come in, all the components. They're in like a little plastic thing. And what's really cool is the pick and place machine will take it out of this plastic container, and they can wiggle around in that plastic container. So it uses optical alignment. It has a camera, and it will detect the edges of the thing, and it will move it about so it's perfectly precise. So when it goes into the place it needs to be, it's absolutely spot on. Still don't want no kiwi factories. It's a Japanese saying, surely Alex will be able to explain it to you. It means small and cute. Oh, is it not kawaii? Is that not what it is? Kawaii. Yeah, small and cute. Alex says kawaii. There we go. Drum memory. Awesome. Old memory. Program in most assembly languages. Hats off to you. That's not an easy task. I've done some assembly language a long time ago. 8086 stuff. I wrote a mouse driver in 8086 back in the day for a Pascal program that I was working with. I wanted to make like a paint program, an ASCII paint program. I think I called it ASCII Paint Shop, and that needed a mouse driver, so I wrote my own mouse driver. And what I learned about that is when you move a mouse, the unit of measurement is called a Mickey. So how many Mickeys does it move? I thought that was hilarious, a Mickey Mouse. Things you learn. So quarantine is born during lockdown. Awesome, I get it now. So my mother was born in 1939. Wow, that's amazing. It's like we're nearly coming up to that again, aren't we? Like that's nearly a century. That's amazing. So I just thought it was computer talk. Yeah, kawaii just means cute. Said normally by high voiced anime character, and high school animated voices as well. Kawaii. We always try and make things look cute when we're trying to think if there's anything in here that's kawaii, but maybe not. Anything to hand. I have got a little meow bit over here, and that's quite kawaii. So this is a little a kitten bot. If I switch this on, let's see if this is going to work. Yeah, there we go. So this is running a little arcade game that I wrote using Microsoft Make Code, and the design of this is quite kawaii. It's got like the little whiskers and everything. It's called a kitten bot. Just has a little LiPo battery in there, a little kitten bot battery, and it looks very much like a microbit. So on the bottom you've got the microbit style headers there as well. So it's pretty cool, pretty cute, and yeah, it just has a little on-off switch. But you can write programs using Microsoft Make Code, which is like an arcade programming language, and then just upload it directly to that. Pretty cool. So I made a little level game there just to try and figure it out. Bingo. 3-2-1. That was what the program was called, wasn't it? 3-2-1. Yep. So later I programmed in Fortran, Pascal, and C. I've never done any Fortran. I think I've seen some Fortran, but I've never actually programmed in it. I've certainly done Pascal, certainly done C, C++, C#. Ted Rogers, that was the name of the guy who did it, yep. It's kind of a British version of an American game show, wasn't it? I think. Was that was Brian Connolly with Dusty? I've no idea. So also goes squee in a high pitched voice. Exactly. That's Kwai as well. My brain failed me. So I want to see cybernetic AI, no software. Cybernetic AI. I heard some really sad stories about the Neuralink. Do you know Elon Musk's chip that goes in your brain that can interface with your brain? I think the monkeys, was it 3 out of the 5 monkeys that they plugged into passed away, which is a bit sad. So Amit says, hello Kevin, you make my life better. Oh, thank you, that's very kind. Adam says, what's Snapchat? So imagine you type a message and then it doesn't exist anymore. That's it's kind of like, here's a post-it note, I'm going to throw it away. If you've not read it in the 3 seconds that it's on the screen, then it's just going to evaporate. So it's for young'uns, Adam. We'll never understand why. So the Brian Connolly show had a weird silver puppet robot. I don't add the link on YouTube, but anyone wants to find it. Oh, okay. I remember there was a TV program called Metal Mickey. That was a weird robot. There's the Metal Mickey robot show, but I don't think it lasted very long. They just had this massive robot that couldn't go downstairs and stuff, as usual. He's just baiting Alex there. You mean millennials, AK snowflakes? Adafruit has an I2C MUX using the TCA 9548A. Awesome. So I remember Brian Connolly battering Larry the Loofah. SparkFun has one too. So William says, I visited the Grace Hopper when she spoke to our computer club in 1970s. Wow, that's amazing. Remember the first flashes of it, Richard? It was only fun when I was on. On the Altair 808000A, I had a key in the bootloader on the front panel switches so I could load BASIC from paper tape reader. That's amazing. They had some paper tape readers at the museum as well. They had a box with an on-off switch on it, and it simply just rewound the tape. So it seems like a trivial thing, but if you've got like miles of tape, that would be like a really smart thing. And tape was obviously superior to punch cards because it was all continuous, but punch cards were superior in that you could easily correct one mistake in it, whereas if you had punch paper tape, you'd have to snip the section that had the bug in it and then sellotape in the piece that was correct. So yeah. So hey from Lilleberg, Peru. Awesome. So what else we got? So Dale I did Fortran on a CDC 3150. That's amazing. I wonder if we saw one of them at the museum, actually. They've got so many computers in there. I worked on a VAX computer when I was at university. I think they're quite old. They're like a 16-bit. Are they 16-bit with a 32-bit bag on the side? Did I once read about that? I read a book about the making of the VAX computer. And there was a lot of that kind of thing going on where there was one generation of computer and then the next manufacturer tried to out-better the other manufacturer by having like the next generation of things, and they would cut corners. So, you know, you'd have like the Apple Mac that's behind me would be like a 16-bit machine, but they would have like an extension that would make part of it 32-bit. So it might be able to have 32-bit memory or have 32-bit software, but it didn't really properly run in 32 bits. It would just kind of cheat. So they call that having a bag on the side. It's just like it's not really there. So yeah, surprise, RPI 5. So Eben said something interesting about that. He said, looking forward to the next 10 years, he only expects to have a couple of generations extra from the Raspberry Pi 4. He said we might be at Raspberry Pi 6 in 10 years' time. So I don't think we're going to see a Raspberry Pi 5 this year. I don't think we're probably going to see that next year. I know they are working on that. They've been hiring chip designers left, right and centre, but yeah, they've got a lot of challenges in that space. I did ask him, I said, are you going to do what Apple have done? So instead of using Broadcom silicon, are you going to use, Raspberry Pi silicon? Like you've got your RP2040, which is pure their own design of chip. That's Apple Raspberry Pi silicon. He said, yeah, but the issue is that there is an order of magnitude more complexity between the RP2040 and the full-blown multi-core chip that's on the Raspberry Pi, so it's not something you can do kind of overnight. So James says, Crichton's my favourite robot. I like Red Dwarf as well. That's pretty cool. He's a pretty cool robot. So yeah, Metal Mickey. You remember that? The one thing I remember from Metal Mickey was like, they were like complaining about the robot, and they said like, in the middle of the night we just heard crash bang thump wallop, want to go to wee wee, and it was Metal Mickey. And I was like, why would a robot? I don't know. So yeah. So Dale says, I used an ASR 33 teletype as a terminal. That's pretty cool. And it's weird that we have a lot of things kind of hang over today. So like we have carriage returns and line feeds because of old-fashioned teletype, the mechanics of like a typewriter, where you'd have to sort of turn the carriage round to get some more paper. So that's the line feed, and then the carriage return would make the head go from one side to the other. So you'd have to have both of them, and you see that in text files. You'll have is it character 13 at the end to do like a carriage return, and then like there's a line feed as well. It's just nuts that that's still in there on terminal stuff. So yeah, it had as a terminal which had a paper tape read write header, had an S10 bus in the days of the 70s. We had an issue with our CPUs. Is patents? Yes, that's right as well. So buying off the shelf is definitely cheaper than developing your own. There's also a rush. Eben was saying that there's also a rush to use the next generation of chip technology as well. So, is it like 22 nanometers, or do you want to go even more? 16 nanometers is now available, and he said there's always like a rush to go to the next thing, but the tooling required for that, and the complexity of the design and the fabrication process, it's like layers of complexity that you need to go through. And you think, what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to build the best computer, or are we trying to build the best computer for $35? And that was the difference between, like, say, the ZX Spectrum from Sinclair. They were working to like a £99 price point at the time. So what was the best computer they could build in that year for that price? And they went from like the ZX80, the ZX81, and then from the ZX81 to the ZX82, which was the ZX Spectrum that had colour. So that's why it's got the Spectrum. That's what the colours is all about. And they did the price point. That was Sinclair's thing, wasn't it? It was always trying to build something for a particular price, so everyone could afford it. So the lorry driver and his wife could afford it, as he would say. Yeah. What else we got on here? So Dale says, all the Raspberry Pi folks have to do is talk to ARM for multi-core MCUs. But he did talk about that. Is it like an ARM Core 5 or something? And he said we could go out and license that today if we wanted, but it's not as good as the Raspberry Pi 4 core. Wow, so the teletype terminals run at 10 characters per second. That's not fast, is it? It's a tricky thing. So many factors people don't think about. That's it. So it can be a whole different. If things go expensive, if the cost of living goes up, then what you can get for $35 is like a lot less. So that becomes really difficult in times of recession or war or whatever. So yeah, lots of different factors in there, but they're working hard on making some really cool stuff. And I love the fact that it isn't just about the hardware, it isn't just about the really cool software. And they talked about if you watch the live stream playback, you'll see them talk about they originally booted the Raspberry Pi to CPython. So a bit like the Pico, it would just boot into a Python environment. And then at some point they thought, well, let's get it running on Ubuntu. And then Ubuntu didn't support they dropped support for the Core, is it the 5? The ARM 5 core, I think, is on the original. I'm not too familiar with these myself, but I think the original chip that's on there is like an ARM 5. And Ubuntu dropped support for that, so they had to find something that did support it, and Debian still supported it. And then there was a whole group of people that kind of officially supported Debian, and they call it Raspbian, and that's kind of where Raspberry Pi OS came from. So yeah, it's quite an interesting story about all that. So I'll probably be working on my own projects, designing at least part of it sponsored by ARM developers. Awesome. So talk about prices going up. My book has 124 colour pages. Amazon are charging £10. That's all right. £10 is all right. £7.99 is usually a paperback price. So for a technical manual, that's not a bad price. Go for it, Adam. You have to drop me a link, and I'll certainly grab a copy of that. So So I think we're there, guys. I think that's probably it for today's show. Thank you for hanging out with me and being a bit easy on me as well, because I usually like to try and cram in as much value as I can into a show, and I was so busy this weekend attending the event, travelling up and down the country and visiting these amazing events and so on. So next week I'll have some more stuff here that's really cool. So I'll hopefully have another midweek video and another live stream show for you next Sunday. So thank you everyone for watching. Really enjoyed you hanging out with me, and I shall see you next time. Bye for now.